Whispers in the sand, the Sonoran Desert. Vast, brutal, beautiful. I stood at the edge of a crime scene, the midday sun turning the sand into a blinding mirror. A lone saguaro cactus, arms outstretched like a silent witness, cast a skeletal shadow over the scene. This wasn't the peaceful desert panorama tourists came to see. This was a place of violence, where the silence held the echo of a life taken. 2 cases, 1 truth. Miles away, the Pacific Ocean roared against the sandy shore. Detective Mia Sanchez, her dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, stared at the body sprawled on the beach. The victim, a young woman with sun-bleached hair, lay still, the waves lapping at her feet. The ocean, usually a source of life and tranquility, had become a cold, indifferent tomb. Yet, both deaths, separated by miles of unforgiving terrain, were connected by an invisible thread, a shared darkness that I could feel in my gut. A scientist's eye. The desert sun beat down on my back as I examined the volcanic rock fragments under a high-powered microscope. After hours of meticulous analysis, I matched the fragments to a specific volcanic flow near the Salton Sea. The Salton Sea, a vast inland sea formed by a catastrophic engineering accident, was now a shrinking, polluted reminder of human folly. Meanwhile, Detective Sanchez, guided by the saltwater algae evidence, discovered security footage of Sarah Daniels arguing with a man near the isolated tide pools. The man, his face obscured by a baseball cap, bundled Sarah into a van and sped away. 2 cases, 2 victims, 2 seemingly different worlds, yet the evidence was weaving a tapestry of connections, a chilling narrative of violence and deceit. Sands of Time, secrets revealed. The Salton Sea shimmered under the relentless desert sun, its surface a blinding expanse of blue and white. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay and salt. The volcanic flow, a jagged scar on the landscape, stretched towards the horizon. The silence was broken only by the cry of a lone osprey circling overhead. I walked slowly, my eyes scanning the ground, searching for any disturbance in the patterns of the sand and rock. The desert, a master of disguise, held its secrets close, but I knew what to look for. My training allowed me to see the subtle signs of human presence, the footprints of time that lingered long after the tracks themselves had been erased. And then I saw it. A slight depression in the ground, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. The color of the sand was slightly different, a subtle clue that something had been buried and then unearthed. My heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and dread. This was where Jake Mallory's journey had ended. Carefully, I marked the area and began the delicate process of excavation. Detective Sanchez, her face etched with determination, reviewed the security footage from the tide pools. The grainy image of the van, a nondescript white panel van, offered little in the way of clues. Enhancements to the footage revealed a faint logo on the side of the van, partially obscured by dirt. A logo for a local surf shop, a shop known to rent vans to tourists and locals alike. The tide was turning, the investigation gaining momentum. The rental agreement for the van led Detective Sanchez to a local fisherman, a man with a history of violence against women. The fisherman, when confronted with the evidence, clammed up, his silence speaking volumes. But his silence didn't matter. The ocean had spoken, and its voice, carried on the tide of evidence, was about to bring justice to Sarah Daniels. Back in the lab, I examined the contents of Jake Mallory's stomach, carefully preserved by the desert's dry heat. Along with the expected remnants of his last meal, I found something unexpected, tiny, almost microscopic fragments of seashells. Seashells that, upon further analysis, matched the unique composition of shells found only in the tide pools where Sarah Daniels had last been seen. The desert had whispered another secret, a connection between 2 victims, 2 worlds. The evidence was building, a damning indictment woven from the very fabric of the environments where the crimes had taken place. The seashells, out of place and out of time, told a story of their own. Jake Mallory had been to the tide pools, had ingested those tiny fragments of seashells, perhaps during a struggle, perhaps in a desperate attempt to survive. The desert once again had provided a crucial clue, a glimmer of light in the abyss of the investigation. The fisherman, despite his silence, was a treasure trove of evidence. His van, when searched, yielded traces of Sarah's blood, confirming our suspicions. But it was the seemingly insignificant details that often held the most weight. A single grain of sand, lodged in the tread of his boot, matched the unique mineral composition of the sand found at the Salton Sea. That single grain of sand, a silent witness to the fisherman's presence at the Salton Sea, was the final nail in his coffin. The fisherman, confronted with the overwhelming evidence, finally cracked. He confessed to killing Sarah Daniels in a fit of rage and, in a desperate attempt to cover his tracks, transported her body to the desert. He also admitted to killing Jake Mallory, who had witnessed the abduction, silencing him permanently. The desert, once a place of secrets, had become a place of revelation. The investigation, a complex tapestry woven from the threads of forensic science, human intuition, and the silent testimony of the environment, had reached its conclusion. The fisherman, his fate sealed by the very elements he had sought to use to his advantage, awaited trial for the murders of Jake Mallory and Sarah Daniels. The case, a stark reminder of the darkness that could lurk even in the most beautiful of places, had tested me, challenged my skills, and pushed me to the limits of my expertise. But it had also reaffirmed my belief in the power of science, the unwavering pursuit of truth, and the importance of giving voice to the voiceless. The desert and the ocean, two seemingly disparate worlds, had converged in this case, their paths intersecting in a tragic dance of violence and despair. The courtroom was a somber stage, the air thick with anticipation and grief. The families of the victims, their faces etched with pain, sought solace in the wheels of justice slowly turning. The evidence, meticulously presented, painted a clear picture of the events leading to the tragic deaths of Jake Mallory and Sarah Daniels. The verdict, when it came, was guilty on all counts. The fisherman, his face a mask of defeat, was led away, his fate sealed by the very evidence he had sought to erase. Justice, though it could not bring back the lost lives, had been served. The families of the victims, their grief still raw, found a measure of peace in the verdict. The knowledge that their loved one's killer would face the consequences of his actions provided a small comfort in the face of such immense loss. The Sonoran Desert, vast and unforgiving, stretched out before me, its beauty tinged with a newfound respect. The case, though closed, lingered in my mind, a stark reminder of the capacity for both darkness and light that resided within humanity. The experience had changed me, deepened my understanding of the delicate balance between the natural world and the human one. The desert, once a symbol of isolation and mystery, was now a testament to the power of observation, the importance of listening to the whispers of the natural world. The case had shown me that even in the most desolate of places, clues to the truth could be found, if one knew where to look. The impact of forensic science on criminal justice was undeniable. It provided the tools, the techniques, and the unwavering pursuit of truth that allowed us to navigate the complexities of human behavior, to separate fact from fiction, and to ensure that justice was served.